Okay, my friends, I have five big stories for you today. So let's start here. Belarus recruited 486 friendly monitors after barring international observers. So, as you know, Lukashenko was just re-elected. I even hesitate to say the word re-elected because that's not what it was. It wasn't an election, it was a sham. Over 90 politically biased observers, many facing criminal charges at home, were deployed to validate the 2025 presidential election. And I watched a video where he was asked about international observers coming to watch and monitor the elections. And he said, "What if the international observers don't want to come? Who am I to force them? What is that to me?" Well, they don't want to go to jail, so that might be part of what's going on here. But then I saw this where Solioff was talking about, excuse me, but the only real democracies, if we look at it, are now us and the Belarusians because of the will of the people. The people rule, the people decide. Like, no, your election was just as fraudulent in Russia as the election in Belarus. So it's hardly an issue about the will of the people. Okay. Second big story. So Hungary is to veto the extension of sanctions against Russia in 6 months if the EC fails to fulfill energy security guarantees, according to Viktor Orban. Now, they every 6 months the European Union has to renew sanctions on Russia. And so this is Orban trying to extort, and he just extorted them within the last few days, so that he got security guarantees from the EU Commission, and he's going to do it again in 6 months now. And he saber rattles against Ukraine and that sort of thing. So here, a decision on the sanctions must be made every 6 months, and if the EU Commission guarantees do not fulfill them, then we will not only start talking about lifting sanctions, but we will lift them. So if the European Commission does not fulfill what we agreed on, then the sanctions will end, Orban told a radio broadcaster. He stressed that the main point of the agreements is negotiations on the resumption of transit of Russian gas through the Ukraine to Europe. Of course, that process will just have been made simpler since they were hitting the pipeline that would be bringing this gas, and so it would be harder for them to be able to actually do that. It's one thing to threaten when there's a real threat. It's another thing to threaten when there's not. Now, Bloomberg, and I showed this morning in the Daily Brief, Bloomberg shows that the oil flows halt at Russia's Ust-Luga Baltic port following a reported attack. A major Russian oil export facility suspended operations after Ukraine reported attacking it, supporting pipeline and infrastructure. So they're having an effect. Now, Phillips O'Brien commented here, and I think this is spot on. These attacks are continuing. Ukraine certainly seems to have the accumulated mass needed to keep them going. Yes, they have the resources in order to keep pummeling them. And it feels like every day this week I've been talking about oil refineries being attacked by Ukraine in Russia, or oil refineries or depots or something related to that. And so they keep doing it, and they're going to keep doing that and driving this oil refining business into the ground. Representative Joe Wilson put this out yesterday, and this is the pin Representative Wilson gave me in the elevator. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back one video to "This Gives Me Hope," and you'll understand the backstory there. Disappointed that the EU does not plan to impose full ban on Russian liquefied natural gas. War criminal Putin has been attacking NATO territory, murdering Ukrainians, and illegally occupying Ukraine and Georgian territory for years. We need to get serious. Joe Wilson's one of the most powerful voices out there saying the right things about how we ought to be processing. I'm so glad that I got a chance to meet him. Okay. Jay in Kiev talks about the economy here. Looming wave of bankruptcies set to hit Russia's car industry as 60% now operate at a loss. 60% of dealers in Russia are operating at a loss. I showed this some time ago, and there's a real pinch being felt on dealers. And it's the same story in almost every industry where workers are being pulled off because of into the war, bribed by one-time payments, and then that's creating a upward pressure on, like, there's not enough workers to go around, so that creates competition for wages, and that's coupled with already inflation so that people can't afford to buy the cars. And so that's where they are. Some will last for 2 or 3 months. Some will hold out for up to 6 months. Already in March through April, we will see bankruptcies of dealers, both large and small. And yeah, I think that's very fair. Okay, now I'm not going to actually listen to Steve Rosenberg today. Just read what it says here. One Russian paper today says, "quote It's a paradox. Official statistics say incomes keep rising." Well, I mean, that's because they're official statistics, and this is what they do with the official statistics. But people can't afford to pay housing, utility bills, and go to the dentist, buy medicine. Another paper said preparations for a Trump-Putin telephone call have oddly dragged out. I wonder why that is. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Here we are, the Institute for the Study of War. The Kremlin newswire TASS published an interview with Valdai Discussion Club research director Fyodor Lukyanov on January 30th, entitled "Don't Count on Big Agreements." So why exactly are things dragging out? Is it because of Ukraine? Is it because of Trump? Is it because of Putin? Well, let's see. Okay, don't count on big agreements, highlighting the Kremlin's ongoing efforts to shape domestic and global expectations about future negotiations between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. Lukyanov stated that during the interview that the main thing for future peace negotiations regarding Ukraine is not the territories, but addressing the root causes of the war, which Lukyanov defined as NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe in the 1990s and early 2000s. Yeah, they kept moving west. Well, no, that's not what's happening. These countries aren't moving, NATO is not moving east. It's that these countries are actually trying to run into the safety of the arms of the West because, well, Russia's doing what Russia would otherwise have done to them, and they don't want that. Lukyanov's statements are yet another indication that the Kremlin remains committed to imposing its will and security interests on the United States and Europe and is not interested in compromising on this goal. So I think that's fair. They're not interested in rushing to a table to get some kind of peace deal. It also said this, and I thought this was really interesting. Lukyanov's statements assume that Trump and his administration are weak and more susceptible to being intimidated by the Kremlin, and if the Kremlin simply shows force, just like they did to the Biden administration. So, in fact, that they're more susceptible than the former Biden administration, which is bizarre. I think that explains why they keep trying to poke Trump in the eye by saying these things about Trump. Well, he thinks he's going to do this to us. He's who is he to talk about that, right? Like if they just bully enough, that I don't think that approach is going to work with the Trump administration. Okay, we'll find out soon enough. Now, here's Trump talking on Truth Social about BRICS. If BRIC countries try to move away from the dollar, they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling to the wonderful US economy. So Trump is saying this about BRICS. BRICS are talking regularly about, well, if we just have this BRICS currency, the dollar will plummet. Yeah, I don't think that can work. I just don't know any mechanism by which BRICS could have their own alternative to the US dollar. The US dollar is not stable in the sense that it doesn't lose any value, but it is one of the more stable currencies in the world. Like we're not just not backing it. I mean, like we have national debt, but it's more stable than other choices. Okay, at any rate, Trump says this, the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We are going to require a commitment from these seemingly hostile countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling in the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker nation. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade or anywhere else in any country that tries to say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. Okay, so I think tariffs are a terrible idea. And I think that Trump is actually philosophically perfectly fine with imposing these tariffs, which makes it a real threat. Like if I was in charge and I said that, they would say, we know Gerdes, he doesn't want to do these tariffs. There's no way he would do these tariffs, so they could ignore it, With Trump, they're going, I think he really wants to put tariffs to protect his own market. And so he would be helping domestic producers sell more in the United States. It would cost more for consumers, but he's fine with that trade-off. But it's a real threat from Trump. So yeah, okay, so that's where that is. Okay, now I saw this yesterday, and I thought that's odd. It says, "Do you know that today is the 3,999th day of Russia's Ukraine war, cowardly called the Ukraine war, but it being in fact Russia, Belarus, Iran, North Korea, China's war against Ukraine." So now you know. And I thought 3,999th day? That sounds crazy. Well, if you look it up, okay, if you start with on 18 to 20 February 2014, and that's the day where protesters were first killed in classes with Berkut special riot police. Okay, if you date it from that point, this is essentially where the Maidan turned deadly. This is day 4,000. So yesterday would have been 3,999. Today is day 4,000, and that's how we get there with the math. That's incredible to my mind. All right, my friends, just a little bit. All right, my friends, that's all that I have today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.